First, the highlights. Wife of Lagos State Governor urges victims of gender-based violence to break culture of silence. Senate seeks inclusion of domestic workers in new minimum wage. On the foreign scene, European Union strips Hungary of right to host meeting of foreign defense ministers. And in sport, Nigeria Football Federation confirms Kaduna as venue of Super Sand Eagles 2024 Africa Cup of Nations second leg qualifier against Mauritania. Now the details. I am Dele Agadumo. Wife of the Lagos State Governor, Ibijoke Sanwo-Olu, has called on victims of sexual and gender harassment to speak up and break the culture of silence. Mrs. Sanwo-Olu made the call at an event organized by the Society of Women Accountants of Nigeria, SWAN, in partnership with the Lagos State University, LASU, to raise awareness among students of the accounting department on recognizing, preventing, and addressing sexual harassment. She stated that the coming together of SWAN and LASU will assist in creating a culture of respect and accountability and encouraging individuals to speak out against injustices and support victims of harassment, thereby fostering a safer and more inclusive environment. Mrs. Sanwo-Olu, who was represented by a member of the Committee of Wives of Lagos State officials, Oluwatoyin Swarao, highlighted the importance of collaboration in building a safer and more equitable environment, particularly for the youth. Vice Chancellor of LASU, Ibiyemi Olatunji remarked that LASU identified the issue of SGBV as a societal vice that requires all the concentration it can get, especially in a learning environment where students need to focus on their academics without any distraction. Lagos State government has assured residents of Lagos State-owned housing estates of transparency and openness in allocations of homes. Commissioner, Ministry of Housing, Moruf Akinderu Fatai, made this known during a stakeholders forum organized for residents of Lagos State government-owned housing estates in Ikorodu Division. He said the forum is organized to enlighten the residents on the workings of the state government and also direct them to approach the facility manager in case of any complaint or observation on issues that concern their estate. Akideru Fatai, who was represented by the ministry's permanent secretary, Bola Hotoriola, stressed the need for residents to comply with all guidelines as stated in their letter of allocation, as this will serve as a guide to them. He also advised the residents to pay their annual service charge, sinking fund, special levy and insurance premium promptly as and when due, in accordance with the deed of memorandum of understanding signed by both parties, as failure to comply with lead to revocation of the housing unit allocation. Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, Fidet Okiria, has advised subnational governments and the private sector to invest in rail infrastructure. Okiria made the call during the endowed professorial chair on transport and logistics guest lecture at the School of Transport and Logistics, Lagos State University. While delivering a lecture titled From Exclusive Clause to Concurrent List, Potency for Sustainable Rail Infrastructure in Nigeria and the Lagos State Example, Okiria advised the concerned to take advantage of the constitutional amendment that removed the construction and operation of railways from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. He praised the Lagos State for its proactive role in rail development, citing the early commencement of the Blue Line Rail project. Now to the rest of the stories. The Senate and the National Council for Women's Society, NCWS, have sought to include domestic servants in the proposed new 70,000 naira national minimum wage scheme. The call for the inclusion of domestic servants in the national minimum wage came from both institutions at the National Assembly in Abuja during a public hearing on a bill seeking an act to provide for domestication and registration of domestic workers and employers in Nigeria. Lawmaker representing Imo West, Osita Izunaso spearheaded the call for inclusion during his remarks at the public hearing. Izunaso suggested that instead of domestication and protection of domestic workers and employers, the intent of the bill should be changed to registration and protection of domestic workers and their employers. Reacting, Chairman, Senate Committee on Employment, Labor and Productivity, Diket Plang, said an agency would be set up for the implementation of the proposed law, but the Ministry of Labor and Productivity would drive the operation from the onset. The House of Representatives Committee on the Northeast Development Commission, NEDC, has called for more funding to enable the Commission to sustain its developmental strides across the region. The committee made the call during a visit to the project site in Bauchi. Led by the member representing Magumeru, Kaga, and Gubio, Usman Zana, the committee made the recommendation as part of its findings to be submitted to the House of Representatives. Zana, while expressing satisfaction with the critical infrastructure put in place by the Commission across the region, said there is more to do, hence the need to collaborate with the House Committee to look for more funding outside the government-provided avenue. Now to foreign news. The European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has stripped Hungary of the right to host the next meeting of foreign and defense ministers over his stance on the war in Ukraine. It comes weeks after Hungary assumed the rotating presidency of the Council of the European Union, a role in which it would normally host the event, and amid anger over a meeting Prime Minister Viktor Orban held with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow earlier this month. Borrell said Hungary's actions should have consequences and that there is a need to send a signal, even if it is a symbolic signal. Hungary has described the move as completely childish. Now, sport. The Nigeria Football Federation has confirmed that the beach soccer team, the Super Sand Eagles, will host Mauritania in the second leg of the 2024 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier at the Murtala Mohammed Square, Kaduna, on Saturday, July 27. Nigeria holds a first leg advantage after beating Mauritania 5-4 in Nouakchott on Saturday. The Super Sand Eagles won the Beach Soccer Africa Cup of Nations in 2007 and 2009, winning a couple of silver medals at the same competition and also harvesting bronze medals on a couple of occasions. The team also represented Africa at the FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup on many occasions, including reaching the quarterfinals in Ravenna, Italy in 2011, before losing to Brazil in overtime. The team was withdrawn from participating in international competitions by the NFF after their poor outing at the FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup in Paraguay in 2019. And that ends our news at noon. Just before we go, slow down at road junctions, intersections, and pedestrian crossings. You can follow us on like all our various social media platforms: X at Traffic Radio 961, Facebook Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM, Instagram Lagos Traffic Radio 961. Subscribe and watch our news and programs live on YouTube at Traffic Radio 961. You can also visit our website www.trafficradio961.ng. Did you know that the Sanwo-Olu administration renovated 197 public schools across the state? You can get more details on the Lagos State Government website. To end the news, try the highlights of the major stories. Wife of the Lagos State Governor, Ibijake Sanwo-Olu, has called on victims of sexual and gender harassment to speak up and break the culture of silence. The Senate and the National Council for Women's Society, NCWS, have sought to include domestic servants in the proposed new 70,000 naira national minimum wage scheme. We also told you that the European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, has stripped Hungary of the right to host the next meeting of foreign and defense ministers over his stance on the war in Ukraine. And in sports, the Nigeria Football Federation has confirmed that the beach soccer team, the Super Sand Eagles, will host Mauritania in the second leg of the 2024 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier at the Murtala Mohammed Square, Kaduna, on Saturday, July 27. For contact with the newsroom, send a message to info@trafficradio961.ng. And that ends the news broadcast compiled by Abiola Fabolagun. I am Dele Agadumo. Good afternoon. Thank you for listening.